The film begins by showing Ray Thompson, a man who has recently joined the city police department. Ray and his wife Rachel are still grappling with the recent death of their 7-year-old son. The depth of their grief is palpable, and it is clear that both Ray and Rachel are still struggling to come to terms with their loss. Ray carries a heavy burden of guilt, blaming himself for the death of his child. The story then shifts to a man named Boris, who is engaged in an illegal arms smuggling operation in the city's port. Boris is a shrewd operator who has managed to keep his criminal activities under wraps by running a cover business of a ship's engine repair shop, using it as a front to launder the proceeds of his illegal arms sales. However, the police are well aware of Boris's criminal enterprises and have been working tirelessly to gather enough evidence to finally put him behind bars. The following day, Detective Ray and his partner, Kendricks, devise a plan to infiltrate Boris's illegal weapon trade by disguising themselves as customers. They make their way to Boris's establishment, hoping to purchase a significant quantity of weapons. However, Boris, who has become increasingly wary of law enforcement, is quick to suspect that the two men are undercover officers. He denies any involvement in illegal activities, claiming that his business solely consists of repairing boat engines. Despite Ray's attempts to assure Boris of their intentions, the criminal remains skeptical. He is not easily convinced and maintains that he cannot trust the two men. Therefore, Ray is forced to shoot Kendricks in front of Boris so that they can both convince him that they are not members of the police. After witnessing a particularly cruel act perpetrated by Ray, Boris realizes that these men were not whom they claimed to be. He immediately invites them to his warehouse and shows them some firearms. Ray had been pretending to be interested in Boris's weapons, but he had another agenda. As he pretended to inspect the firearms, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Suddenly, the police forces burst into the warehouse, catching Boris and his men by surprise. After years of trying to catch Boris, the police finally succeeded in tricking him into their trap. They quickly secured the warehouse and found all the supplies of weapons they could use as evidence in court later. Boris's capture operation was over, and as the police were taking him away, Kendrick suddenly ran up to Ray, his face contorted in anger. Kendrick spat with his voice filled with anger and said that the shots Ray took earlier could have killed him if it weren't for the bullet vest he was wearing. During this tumultuous period, Officer Ray gained a reputation as a ruthless and unruly police officer. His colleagues and superiors found him difficult to manage and control, and his penchant for making unilateral decisions and acting out of line had become a constant source of frustration and annoyance. The following day, Police Commander Lieutenant Cronin summoned Officer Ray to his office for a critical meeting. He began the meeting by addressing the issues that had been arising with Ray's behavior on the job, specifically mentioning the incident from the previous day where Ray had put his colleagues, including Kendricks, in serious danger during the mission to capture Boris. Lieutenant Cronin made it clear to Ray that his actions were unacceptable and that they could not afford to have a rogue officer on the force while they were in the midst of an important mission. Just as Lieutenant Cronin was finishing his reprimand, Deputy Police Commander Julia Baker walked into the room. She had come to the meeting to deliver a formal sanction to Ray for his reckless behavior. From that day forward, Ray would be removed from any active missions and would not receive pay for the next 30 days as a punishment for his actions. Ray tried to protest the decision, but Julia and Lieutenant Cronin stood firm in their decision. They reminded Ray that he was a member of the police force and needed to conduct himself in a professional manner at all times. They also informed Ray that the consequences of his actions could have been much worse if not for the quick thinking of his colleagues. They agreed that this sanction would serve as a valuable lesson for Ray to learn from his mistakes. A few days after the incident that led to his suspension, Officer Ray received an unexpected message from Lieutenant Cronin. The message instructed him to come to police headquarters immediately for an emergency meeting. Without hesitation, Ray made his way to the station, unsure of what to expect. Upon his arrival, he quickly realized that the meeting was about a serious matter. A young boy named Anton had been kidnapped and was being held in a room with an explosive vest rigged to detonate at the kidnapper's will. The kidnapper was demanding a ransom of $2 million and had requested that the money be delivered to a wrestling match. Despite his suspension, Cronin and Julia knew that Ray's skills and experience made him the perfect candidate for the mission. They decided to enlist his help to rescue Anton safely. As the afternoon progressed, Ray and the rest of the police officers worked diligently to prepare the necessary equipment and weaponry for the mission. Throughout the preparations, Lieutenant Cronin reminded Ray of the importance of the mission and how one wrong move could put Anton's life in danger. He emphasized that Ray's primary task was to deliver the ransom to the kidnapper, while the other officers would handle the ambush. When the team arrived at the wrestling arena, Ray quickly made his way inside and took his seat, number 27, as instructed by the kidnapper. As he sat down, he found a cell phone beneath his seat, containing a message from the kidnapper. The message instructed him to place the ransom bag in the front row of the seats. The wrestling match began, and as the tension in the arena reached a fever pitch, Ray made his move. He placed the bag containing the ransom where the kidnapper had instructed and quickly retreated, following Cronin's orders to get away from the scene as quickly as possible. As soon as Ray exited the arena building, a man named Vladislav Pavel made his move. He quickly snatched the bag and made a beeline for the nearest bathroom. Inside, he switched the contents of the bag into another one, making sure that the new bag would not be traceable. As he was doing this, he realized that the original bag had been equipped with a tracking device. He knew he had to make sure that his whereabouts would remain unknown to the police officers. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Cronin, who was unaware that the bag had been exchanged, ordered his men to take up their positions. But as Pavel emerged from the bathroom, his luck finally ran out. There was a police officer who had been standing guard by the exit, and as soon as he saw Pavel with the bag, he immediately gave chase. Pavel quickly realized that he was being followed, and without hesitation, he pulled out his pistol and began to fire at the pursuing officer and killed him. Not long after the incident, Ray, who was still on location, saw Pavel trying to make his escape after killing the officer. Ray was filled with a sense of determination and rushed after Pavel, determined to bring him to justice. As he was chasing Pavel, he unexpectedly ran into a wrestler who thought Ray was a thug who was trying to cause trouble on the field. The wrestler, who was larger and stronger than Ray, tried to stop him. But Ray, still focused on capturing Pavel, quickly requested permission from Cronin to take down the wrestler, and with it, he quickly knocked the wrestler out with a few strikes and continued his pursuit of Pavel. Ray soon caught up with Pavel, who had made his way above the arena lights. Ray immediately pointed his weapon at Pavel, demanding that he surrender before things got any worse. But Pavel, feeling increasingly cornered, decided to pull out a last-ditch effort. He intended to activate a bomb trigger that was strapped to his body. Ray knew that he had to act fast. If he didn't stop Pavel, the bomb would go off and could cause widespread destruction and loss of life. So, Ray was forced to shoot Pavel multiple times, putting an end to the threat of the bomb. After Pavel was killed, Ray immediately photographed Pavel's tattoo and sent the image to Lieutenant Cronin in order to help them identify who Pavel really was. He also informed Julia that they only had less than 7 hours before the bomb would detonate, as it was a time bomb. Even though his mission had been completed, Ray felt a sense of responsibility to help find the bomb and save Anton. He knew that time was of the essence, and he couldn't just stand idly by. As he drove away from the arena, he realized that someone was following him from behind. He stopped his car to investigate and found that it was Julia. Julia explained that she was following him because she wanted him to withdraw from the operation and return home, as he was supposed to do. Ray explained to Julia that he had once lost a boy who was not much different in age from Anton, and it had been a very painful experience for him and his wife. He couldn't let that happen again and wanted to do everything in his power to save Anton and spare his parents the same heartache. Julia understood his reasoning and reluctantly agreed to let him continue the mission, on the condition that she would accompany him and supervise his movements. The two of them then set out to find more information about Pavel by tracking down a popular tattoo artist in the city. Ray, still filled with a sense of urgency and determination, took a more aggressive approach. Instead of asking politely, he began to beat up the tattoo artist and some thugs who were customers at the place. The situation caused a small disturbance in the place, but eventually it was controlled. Once everything settled, Ray began to question the thugs and tattoo artists about the tattoo on Pavel's body. One of the tattoo artists said that the tattoo was a special one, commonly associated with an ancient Russian gang, a mafia group known for running drug operations in the United States in recent years. Julia, having successfully obtained the information, asked Ray why he didn't try to ask them nicely, instead of creating a commotion by attacking them all. Ray explained that he had known the thugs in the city for years and that this was the only way to get information out of them. Julia and Ray decided to split the task. Julia would find out more information about Anton's identity, while Ray focused on finding out who built the bomb, as he believed that the bomb assembler would know the location where the bomb would be detonated. As Ray and Julia were pursuing leads on the bomb and Anton's whereabouts, Boris, who had previously been arrested by the police, was released from prison after bribing a judge with $5 million. As he was enjoying his time with his dog, Ray suddenly appeared behind him and strangled him with an iron wire. Ray was furious that Boris had been able to buy his way out of prison so easily. He wanted to know who was supplying the guns and explosive bombs to the members of the mafia. As a former member of the mafia, Boris clearly had knowledge of who produced weapons and assembled bombs in the city. He admitted to Ray that he did not know the man who built the bomb, but he did know that one of the most frequented sellers of explosive bombs among the members of the mafia was a man named Makarov. Just as Ray was getting the information he needed, Boris's wife Andrea appeared and fired several shots at him, forcing him to flee the scene. Meanwhile, Julia continued her search for information about Anton's identity, focusing on a Russian settlement in the United States. She eventually met a girl who claimed to know Anton. Eager for any leads, Julia immediately rushed to the apartment where Anton's family was located. Upon her arrival, she met with Anton's uncle, Alex, and informed him that his nephew was being held hostage by a member of a mafia gang. When she showed him a picture of Pavel, Alex recognized him. He said that Pavel had also lived in the apartment. Alex explained that everyone living in the apartment was an illegal immigrant from Russia, and he had entrusted Anton to Pavel because he claimed to be able to send Anton back to Russia. He never expected that Pavel would take Anton hostage and use him to demand a ransom from the police. At the same time, Ray arrived at the Russian embassy in the US looking for a man named Makarov, who was known as one of the embassy officials. However, he was not able to enter the building without permission, so he was forced to use violence and began attacking the guards one by one. After he defeated some of the guards, he finally met Makarov and demanded information on who had been assembling the bomb that Makarov had sold. Although Makarov was unwilling to give up any information at first, Ray threatened him with torture, and Makarov became afraid and immediately informed him that the man who had assembled the bomb was a man named Slava. After obtaining information about Slava's whereabouts, Ray should not take Makarov hostage, but instead release him and find a legal way to leave the embassy building. Ray receives a call from Julia, asking him to meet with her at a specific location. After meeting, the two of them share information they have gathered about the kidnapper's address and the location of the explosive bomb assembler used by Pavel. They work together to find a way to safely find and rescue Anton. Julia and Ray, upon further investigation, learned that Pavel's reason for the kidnapping was to take revenge on Ray. Pavel's younger brother was arrested and sentenced to death by Ray several years ago, and Pavel could not accept the fact that his brother had to be sentenced to death. After obtaining all the necessary information and documents, Julia and Ray rush to Slava's hideout to find out the location of the bomb. Ray shows Slava a photo of the time bomb on Anton's vest, and Slava admits that he was the one who built the bomb. However, Slava claims that he didn't know about the existence of the explosive bomb, as he never put a tracking device in the bomb. Initially, Julia and Ray are skeptical of his claim, but after repeatedly questioning him and threatening him with their guns, they come to believe him and leave Slava's hideout. Unfortunately, as they were about to leave the area, Ray is ambushed and arrested by other police officers. Detective Cronin had received a report about a man named Ray causing a disturbance at the embassy. Without hesitation, Cronin ordered other officers to arrest him and bring him in for questioning. As Ray sat in the police interrogation room, Detective Kendricks decided to play a dangerous game by bringing up the death of Ray's son, Mikey. Kendricks taunted Ray, saying that he had become unhinged since Mikey's passing. Ray's emotions boiled over, and in a fit of anger, he unleashed a barrage of punches on Kendricks, leaving the detective bruised and reeling on the floor. Meanwhile, Julia had received a lead suggesting that a man named Pavel had once worked at a wood factory in the suburbs. She couldn't shake the feeling that Pavel had something to do with the recent disappearance of Anton, so she set out to investigate the factory and see if her suspicions were correct. After his outburst in the interrogation room, Ray couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to find his missing son, Anton, at all costs. With determination in his eyes, he broke free from the police station and set out to find Julia. When he found her, she informed him that they had received a lead that Anton may be held in a wood factory where Pavel, a man they suspected to be involved in Anton's disappearance, used to work as a carpenter. Together, Julia and Ray rushed to the factory, determined to uncover the truth. Upon arrival, they showed a photo of Pavel to the workers, asking if he had ever worked there. The factory's security guard confirmed their suspicions, and without hesitation, Julia and Ray set out to scour the factory for any sign of Anton. They searched every inch of the factory, but after hours of searching, they found no sign of Anton. Discouraged, but not defeated, Julia decided to return to the car and explore other leads in the investigation. Julia's informant had revealed to her a critical piece of information. Pavel had once infiltrated the police headquarters and disguised himself as a technician while carrying a barrel of mysterious drums. With this new information, Julia and Ray knew they had to act fast. They believed that Anton was most likely being held in the technician's room at the police station. They quickly made their way to the police headquarters, but their plans were interrupted when they were ambushed by Boris and his men. It appeared that Boris still held a grudge against Ray for past actions and had set out to capture him and teach him a lesson. Ray and Julia tried to make a run for it, but Boris's men were closing in. They managed to surround their car and capture both Julia and Ray. Just as Boris and his men were about to take Julia and Ray to Boris's headquarters, the two decided that they couldn't go down without a fight. They fought back, using their combat training to take down Boris's men one by one inside the car. In the chaos, Boris himself tried to make a run for it, jumping into another car and chasing after Ray with his remaining men. In the midst of the high-speed pursuit, fate dealt a cruel blow to Boris. He accidentally dropped a hand grenade on his car, causing it to explode and killing him instantly.
That was dramatic.
With Boris out of the way, Ray and Julia were able to finally reach the police station safely. They rushed to the technician's room in the basement, desperate to find any clues that would lead them to Anton. Their persistence paid off when Ray discovered Anton bound to a chair. Without hesitation, Ray untied him and brought him to the bomb disposal room to ensure he was safe. With time running out, Julia and Ray knew they had to act quickly. They immediately ordered all police officers at the headquarters to evacuate the building and began making preparations for the removal of the bomb vest on Anton's body. Ray worked quickly and carefully, expertly defusing the explosive device and removing it from Anton's body. Just as he finished, he heard a loud ticking noise and knew that they had only seconds before the bomb went off. Without hesitation, Ray scooped Anton up into his arms and sprinted out of the room, racing to safety just seconds before the bomb exploded. Though the blast shook the building, the structural damage was minimal. As they emerged from the building, the police officers and civilians who had been evacuated looked on in awe and gratitude. Ray had sacrificed so much to save Anton. The film concludes with a powerful final scene of Ray facing off against Kendricks. The moral of this film is that it's important to be aware of the consequences of our actions and to put the safety and well-being of others above our own personal interests. Ray's actions throughout the film, from his determination to find Anton to his courage in defusing the bomb, all demonstrate selflessness and sacrifice for the greater good. It serves as a reminder to be vigilant and responsible, especially in moments of crisis, and to always make the safety of others a priority.